Hi guys. So today I am not very loud. I'm doing some prep work for some tutorials I have planned. So I basically need to get out the materials that I need and get those bagged into bags so that everything's kind of all in one space. I think that's kind of shiny. I can't help that. Okay, that's kind of shiny, but I can't help it. It's one of the bins that I'm keeping my stuff in. So, yeah, that's what I'm doing today. Yeah, I think the magnifying glass kind of works there. It's a little dark when I'm lifting my hands up though because of light. Like, I'm getting the shadow of this, but I gotta figure out another way of getting it up a little higher so that you guys can see and I can see. I think that's gonna work better. Like, what do you think? Because I think if I have a way to have it like raised up and maybe make a new stand. Oh, I did, honey, but I'm trying to do video prep and this is in the way. Like, this is in the way. I can't see what I'm doing this way. I can't really see what I'm doing. Like, I can manage to do a tutorial, but when I need to see, it's not going to. Yeah, it's like way in the way. So I'm thinking if I can build like a little, even a little L bracket that I can clamp here, and then just even tie this to it, something so I can go like this, and you guys can see, and then I can see it under it, and we can both see, you know? And then I think that's gonna work better because all this is in the way when I'm building stuff. So right now we're just going to do it this way. Oops. My stand is coming apart. The one clip broke on it, but we'll do it this way because I can see it under and still, you guys can still see what I'm doing, sort of. So yeah, we figured out that the magnifier works, but I also figured out that it works for you guys. It doesn't so work well for me. So anyway, so that's what I'm doing today. I've got lots of things around, and I'm working on that. There it is. So we've got some more stories from the ancient tales and folklore. So folklore is folklore thing of Japan from Richard Gordon Smith in chapter 9, 29 to 33. So it's only focused when it's way down here, and I can't work down there, honey. I have to work up here. My hands have to be off the table. This is literally touching the table, and that's where it's focused. So it's not going to work for any kind of long haul kind of thing, because this thing needs to be up higher to focus for you guys. See? That's like way focused now. And I could still work there. But I can't, like, this is blah, blah, blah. I need to make a stand. So you see what I mean? Like it's great up here, but here it's not. It's a little bit focused, but it's unfocused up here. And I have to work up here. This helps, like, this will be good for today and helping you guys see what's going on. but it's not going to be a viable solution because it's the light's shadowing the working space, and I'm still not able to have it focused up high enough. But I have tools. I can build a stand. I think in just an L bracket that I can clamp here, and with the little stick, can just tie this to it. Just clamp it to it. It'll work. Because, I wonder if the batteries are any good in here. No. I have little tiny lights. I don't know if you can see that. You see the little tiny light? I have many tools. I have many tools, or at the very least access to many tools. And I'm sorry if things are noisy right now. They're vacuuming on the other room, but luckily I can mute me and turn on the book. So enjoy.
Chapter 29 of Ancient Tales and Folklore of Japan. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Ancient Tales and Folklore of Japan by Richard Gordon Smith. The Perpetual Life-Giving Wine. Between the northeastern boundary of Totomi Province and the northwestern of Suruga Province stands a lofty mountain, Daimyo-Ginzan. It is a wild and rugged mountain, clad nearly 3/4 up with lofty pines, yenoki, icho, camphors, etc. There are but few paths, and hardly anyone goes up the hill. About halfway up through the forest is a shrine erected to Kwannon, but it is so small that no priest lives there, and the building is rotting away. No one knows why it was put up in such an inaccessible place, except perhaps one solitary girl and her parents, who used to go there for some reason of their own. One day, about 1107 AD, the girl was praying for her mother's recovery from sickness. Okuriha was her name. She lived at Toshiro, at the foot of the mountain, and was the beauty of the countryside, the daughter of a much-loved samurai of some importance. Amid the solemn silence, Okuriha clapped her hands thrice before Kwannon as she prayed, causing mountain echoes to resound. Having finished her prayers, Okuriha began to make her way downwards when she was suddenly strung upon by a ruffianly-looking man, who seized her by the arm. She cried aloud for help, but nothing came except the echoes of her voice, and she gave up herself for lost. Suddenly a piercing cold breeze came along, carrying the autumn leaves in little columns. Okuriha struggled violently with her assailant, who seemed to weaken to the cold wind as it struck his face. Okuriha weakened too. In a few seconds the man fell down as in a drunken sleep, and she was on the point of falling, she knew not why, and of sleeping. Scarce could she keep her eyes open. Just then the wind came hot instead of cold, and she felt herself awake again. On looking up, she saw advancing towards her a beautiful girl, apparently not many years older than herself. The stranger was dressed in white, and seemed to glide. Her face was white as the snow which capped Mount Daimyo-Ginzan. Her brows were crescent-shaped, like those of Buddha. Her mouth was like flowers. In a silvery voice, she called to Okuriha, saying, "Be neither surprised nor afraid, my child. I saw that you were in danger, and I came to your rescue by putting that savage creature to sleep. I sent the warm breeze so that you might not fall. You need not fear that the man is dead. I can revive him if I choose, or keep him as he is if I wish. What is your name?" Okuriha fell on her knees to express her thanks, and rising said, "My name is Okuriha. My father is the samurai who owns the greater part of the village of Tashiro at the foot of the mountain. My mother being ill, I have come up to this old shrine to pray Kwannon for her recovery. 5 times have I been up before, but never met anyone until today, when this dreadful man attacked me. I owe my deliverance entirely to you, holy lady, and I am humbly and deeply grateful. I do hope I shall be able to come here and pray at this shrine again. My father and mother prayed here before I was born, both to Kwannon and to the tenant of the mountain. They had no child, and I was sent to them after their prayers. Therefore, it is right that I should come here to pray for my mother. But this horrid man has frightened me so that I shall be afraid to come alone again." The mountain goddess, for such was Okuriha's rescuer, smiled and said, "You need have no fear, my pretty child. Come here when you will, and I shall be your protector. Children who are as devoted to their parents as you deserve all that is good, and are holy in themselves. If you wish to please me, come again tomorrow, so that we may converse, and bring me some flowers from the fields, for I never descend low enough on earth to get these, though they are my favorites. They smell so sweet. And now you had better go home. When you have had time to reach there, I will restore this horrid man to life and let him go. He is not likely to return to molest you." "I shall be here tomorrow," said Okuriha, bowing her thanks amid her sayonaras. Okuriha-san was so much impressed by the face of the goddess that she could not sleep, and at daybreak next morning was out in the fields gathering flowers, which she took up to the mountain to the shrine where she found the goddess waiting. They talked of many subjects and enjoyed each other's company, and arranged to meet often. Consequently, whenever Okuriha had time, she always went up the mountain. This continued for nearly a year, when Okuriha went up with flowers for the goddess as usual, but she was looking sad and felt sad. "Why is this?" asked the goddess. "Why are you so sad?" Your holiness is right," said Okuriha. "I am sad, for this may be the last day I can come up here and see you. I am now 17 years of age, and my parents think me old enough to marry. 12 years ago, my father arranged that I should marry the son of one of his friends, Tokui of Iwasaki-mura, when we were old enough. Now I am sad to be old enough, so I must marry. The wedding is to be in 3 days. After that I shall have to stay home and work for my husband, and I fear I shall not see you any more. That is why I am sad." As she spoke, tears ran down her cheeks, and there was for a few moments no consoling her. But the goddess soothed her, saying, "You must not be sad, dear child. On the contrary, you are about to enter the happiest state of life by being married. If people were not married and did not produce children to inherit new spirits and life, there could be no continuation. Go back, my child, happily. Get married and produce children. You will be happy, and doing your duty to the world and to the goddess. Before we say farewell, I give you this small gourd of furoshu. Take care of it on your way down the mountain, and when you are married, give some to your husband. You will both remain as you are in appearance, never growing a day older, though you live for centuries, as you will do. And also it will bring you perfect happiness. Now, farewell." Again the tears came to Okuriha's eyes as she bade farewell to her benefactress. But she mustered all her pluck, and making her last bow, took her way down the mountain, weeping as she went. 3 days later Okuriha was married. It was a lucky day according to the calendars, and moreover, it was the year that the Emperor Toba came to the throne, 1108 AD. One day, when celebrating this event at a picnic, Okuriha gave her husband some of the furoshu sake and took the rest herself, as the goddess had bidden her. They were sitting on a beautiful green grassy spot, whereon grew wild violets of delicious fragrance, At their feet gurgled a mountain stream of sparkling clearness. To their surprise, they found petals of cherry blossom suddenly falling all around them. There were no cherry trees near, and at first they were much puzzled. But they saw in the blue sky one white cloud, which had just sailed over them, and seated thereon was the goddess of Mount Daimugenzan. Okuriha recognized her, and pointed her out to her husband as their benefactress. The white cloud carried her up to the top of the mountain, where it hovered until the shades of evening hid it. Okuriha and her husband never grew older. They lived for hundreds of years as senins in Mount Daimugenzan. End of section 29.
Section 30 of Ancient Tales and Folklore of Japan. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Ancient Tales and Folklore of Japan by Robert Gordon Smith of Ancient Tales. Many years ago, there lived in the village of Nomugi in Hida province an old farmer named Jinnai with his wife. They had a daughter on whom they simply doted. Her name was Yuka. She was 7 years of age and an extremely beautiful child. Unfortunately, just at this age, she developed something the matter with her leg, which grew worse and worse until the limb became deformed. Oh, Yuka suffered no pain, but her parents were much troubled. Doctors, drugs, and the advice of many friends made Yuka's leg no better. How sad it will be for her later on, thought her mother and father. Even now it is sad that she should have a deformed leg when she plays with other children. There being no help, Yuka and her parents had to make the best of things. In any case, Yuka was not the only deformity in the village. There were other cases. One of Yuka's boy playmates, Tarako, had been born blind, and another, Rinkichi, was so deaf that he could hold his ear to the temple bell while the other children struck it, and he never heard the sound, though he felt a vibration. Well, these two were perhaps no better off than Yuka, and at last her parents began to console themselves. The child played about and seemed perfectly happy. Nomugi village is at the foot of the great mountain Norikuradake, which rises 10,500 feet, and is a wild place of volcanic origin. Many of the children of Nomugi used to go daily and play on the grassy slope of an old dam at the end of the village. They would throw stones into the water, fish, sail boats, and pick flowers. The dam was a kind of club for the children. From morning to evening they were there, having with them their rice to eat. One day, while thus playing, they were surprised by an old man with a long white beard approaching them. He came from the direction of the mountain. All stopped their games to watch him. He came on into their midst, and, patting them on the head, seemed to make friends naturally. Taking notice of Yuka's bad leg, the old man said, "Come, how is this? Have not your parents tried to cure it?" Little Yuka answered that they had, but that they could not do any good. The old man made her lie down on the grass and began to manipulate the leg, pulling it this way and that way, and rubbed in some red medicine which he took from a case. The old man then operated on Tarako, the blind boy, and on Rinkichi, the deaf one. "Now, my children," said he, "you all love your fathers and mothers, and it will be a great pleasure to them to find you cured of your ailments. You are not well yet, but you will be if you do what I tell you, in less than 3 or 4 days. You are not to mention having seen me until I tell you that you may. After, you are cured. Tomorrow you will meet me at the flat rock under the cave on Mount Norikuradake. You know the place. Very well. Until tomorrow, goodbye. And if I find you do as I tell you, I will make you all laugh by showing you some fancy tricks." Then he trudged off in the direction whence he had come. The children continued their play, thinking, "What a nice old man!" And, strange to say, Oyuka, as she walked home, felt her leg to be of greater use. Very little attention is paid to Japanese children. They are nearly always good and well-behaved, little grown-up people, in fact, and therefore they ate their suppers and went to bed as such, giving no account of their day's amusements or of the strange old man. Next day they went to the flat rock. As it was wet, they had not started until late, but they found the old man, and though he had no time to play with them and show the tricks which he had promised, he attended to Yuka's leg, and to the dumb boy and the blind. "Now go home," he said, "and come back here tomorrow. By the time you get home, Yuka's leg will be well, Tadako will be able to see, and Rinkichi able to hear. And I am sure your relations will be delighted. Tomorrow, if it is fine, you must come early and we shall have lots of fun." Even before they got home, everything came about as the old man had said. The 3 children were recovered. The villagers and the parents rejoiced together, but all were mystified as to who the magician could be. "If he returns to the mountain, as the children say, then he must live in the cave," said one. "He must be a sennin," said another. "It is rumored that the most famous priest, Kukai Shonin, who founded the sacred temple on Mount Koyasan in Kii province, was able to make these wondrous cures in children," added another. But with all the gossiping and conjectures, none could explain how it was possible to bring sight to a boy who had been born blind. At last someone suggested that 2 or 3 should follow the children secretly on the following day. By hiding themselves, they might be able to see what happened. This excellent plan was adopted. In the morning, about 30 children started off at daybreak, followed, unknown to themselves, by 2 men of the village. When the children arrived at the flat rock, which is said to be large enough to measure 1,000 Japanese mats of 6 feet by 3 feet, they found the old man seated at one end of it. The 2 men who had followed hid themselves in some fine azalea bushes. First they saw the old man rise to his feet, and then go over to the children and hear from the 3 cured ones how they felt, and how their parents had been pleased. Tadako was the most delighted, perhaps, of the 3, for he had never seen the world before, or even his parents. "Now, my children, you have come here to see me, and I am going to amuse you all. See here." Saying this, the old man picked up some dead sticks, and blowing at their ends, produced blossoming cherry branches, plum blossoms, and peach, and handed a branch of each to the girls. Next he took a stone and threw it into the air, and behold, it turned into a dove. Another turned into a hawk, or, in fact, into any bird a boy chose to name. "Now," said the old man, "I will show you some animals that will make you laugh." He recited some mystic verse, and monkeys came leaping on the flat rock and began to wrestle with one another. The children clapped their hands in delight, but one of the men who was hidden exclaimed in his astonishment, "Who can this wizard be? No other but a wizard could do such things." The venerable old man heard, and, looking cautiously round, said, "Children, I can do no more tricks today. My spell has gone. I will go to my home, and you had better go to yours. Farewell." So saying, the old man bowed to them and turned up the mountain path, taking the direction of the cave. The 2 men came out from their hiding, and they, with the children, tried to follow him. In spite of his great age, he was much more nimble than they among the rocks, but they got far enough to see him enter the cave. Some minutes later they came to the entrance, and bowed before it. The entrance was surrounded by fragrant flowers, but into its dark depths they did not venture. Suddenly Oyuka pointed upwards, crying, "There is the old grandfather!" They all looked up, and standing on a cloud was the old man, right over the summit of the mountain. "Ah, now it is quite clear," cried one of the men. "It is the famous hermit of Mount Norikuradake." They all bowed low and then went home to report to the villagers what they'd seen. Subscriptions were collected, a small temple was built inside the cave, and they called it the Sendokutsu Temple, which means the Sennin's Temple. End of chapter 30. Read by Rob Marland. Chapter 31 of Ancient Tales and Folklore of Japan. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Ancient Tales and Folklore of Japan by Richard Gordon Smith. Yosoji's Camellia Tree. In the reign of the Emperor Sanjo began a particularly unlucky time. It was about the year 1013 AD when Sanjo came to the throne, the first year of Chowa. Plague broke out. 2 years later the royal palace was burned down, and a war began with Korea, then known as Shiragi. In 1016 another fire broke out in the new palace. A year later the emperor gave up the throne, owing to blindness and for other causes. He handed over the reins of office to Prince Atsuhara, who was called the Emperor Go-Ichijo, and came to the throne in the first year of Kwannin, about 1017 or 1018. The period during which the Emperor Go-Ichijo reigned, about 20 years, up to 1036, was one of the worst in Japanese history. There were more wars, more fires, and worse plagues than ever. Things were in disorder generally, and even Kyoto was hardly safe to people of means, owing to the bands of brigands. In 1025 the most appalling outbreak of smallpox came. There was hardly a village or a town in Japan which escaped. It is at this period that our story begins. Our heroine, if such she may be called, is no less a deity than the goddess of the great mountain of Fuji, which nearly all the world has heard of or seen depicted. Therefore, if the legend sounds stupid and childish, blame only my way of telling it, simply as it was told to me. And think of the great mountain of Japan, as to which anything should be interesting. Moreover, challenge others for a better. I have been able to find none myself. During the terrible scourge of smallpox, there was a village in Suruga province called Kamiide, which still exists, but is of little importance. It suffered more badly than most other villages. Scarce an inhabitant escaped. A youth of 16 or 17 years was much tried. His mother was taken with the disease, and his father being dead, the responsibility of the household fell on Yosoji, for such was his name. Yosoji procured all the help he could for his mother, sparing nothing in the way of medicines and attendants. But his mother grew worse day by day, until at last her life was utterly despaired of. Having no other resource left to him, Yosoji resolved to consult a famous fortune-teller and magician, Kamo Yamakiko. Kamo Yamakiko told Yosoji that there was but one chance that his mother could be cured, and that lay much with his own courage. "If," said the fortune-teller, "you will go to a small brook which flows from the southwestern side of Mount Fuji, and find a small shrine near its source, where Okinagasukineo, the god of long breath, is worshipped, you may be able to cure your mother by bringing her water therefrom to drink. But I warn you that the place is full of dangers from wild beasts and other things, and that you may not return at all or even reach the place." Yosoji, in no way discouraged, made his mind up that he would start on the following morning, and, thanking the fortune-teller, went home to prepare for an early start. At 3 o'clock next morning he was off. It was a long and rough walk, one which he had never taken before, but he trudged gaily on, being sound of limb and bent on an errand of deepest concern. Towards midday, Yosoji arrived at a place where 3 rough paths met, and was sorely puzzled which to take. While he was deliberating, the figure of a beautiful girl clad in white came towards him through the forest. At first, Yosoji felt inclined to run, but the figure called to him in silvery notes, saying, "Do not go. I know what you are here for. You are a brave lad and a faithful son. I will be your guide to the stream, and, take my word for it, its waters will cure your mother. Follow me if you will, and have no fear, though the road is bad and dangerous." The girl turned, and Yosoji followed in wonderment. In silence, the two went for fully 4 miles, always upwards and into deeper and more gloomy forests. At last a small shrine was reached, in front of which were 2 torii, and from a cleft of a rock gurgled a silvery stream, the clearness of which was such as Yosoji had never seen before. "There," said the white-robed girl, "is the stream of which you are in search. Fill your gourd, and drink of it yourself, for the waters will prevent you catching the plague. Make haste, for it grows late, and it would not be well for you to be here at night. I shall guide you back to the place where I met you." Yosoji did as he was bid, drinking and then filling the bottle to the brim. Much faster did they return than they had come, for the way was all downhill. On reaching the meeting of the 3 paths, Yosoji bowed low to his guide and thanked her for her great kindness, and the girl told him again that it was her pleasure to help so dutiful a son. "In 3 days you will want more water for your mother," said she, "and I shall be at the same place to be your guide again." "May I not ask to whom I am indebted for this great kindness?" asked Yosoji. "No, you must not ask, for I should not tell you," answered the girl. Bowing again, Yosoji proceeded on his way as fast as he could, wondering greatly. On reaching home, he found his mother worse. He gave her a cup of the water and told her of his adventures. During the night, Yosoji awoke as usual to attend to his mother's wants, and to give her another bowl of water. Next morning he found that she was decidedly better. During the day he gave her 3 more doses, and on the morning of the 3rd day he set forth to keep his appointment with the fair lady in white, whom he found seated waiting for him on a rock at the meeting of the 3 paths. "Your mother is better, I can see from your happy face," said she. "Now follow me as before, and make haste. Come again in 3 days, and I will meet you. It will take 5 trips in all, for the water must be taken fresh. You may give some to the sick villagers as well." 5 times did Yosoji take the trip. At the end of the 5th, his mother was perfectly well, and most thankful for her restoration. Besides which, most of the villagers who had not died were cured. Yosoji was the hero of the hour. Everyone marveled and wondered who the white-robed girl was. For, though they had heard of the shrine of Okinaga-suki-neo, none of them knew where it was, and but few would have dared to go if they had known. Of course, all knew that Yosoji was indebted in the first place to the fortune-teller Kamo-yama-kiko, to whom the whole village sent presents. Yosoji was not easy in his mind. In spite of the good he had brought about, he thought to himself that he owed the whole of his success in finding and bringing the water to the village to his fair guide, and he did not feel that he had shown sufficient gratitude. Always he had hurried home as soon as he had got the precious water, bowing his thanks. That was all, and now he felt as if more were due. Surely prayers at the shrine were due, or something. And who was the lady in white? He must find out. Curiosity called upon him to do so. Thus Yosoji resolved to pay 1 more visit to the spring, and started early in the morning. Now familiar with the road, he did not stop at the meeting of the 3 paths, but pursued his way directly to the shrine. It was the first time he had travelled the road alone, and in spite of himself he felt afraid, though he could not say why. Perhaps it was the oppressive gloom of the mysterious dark forest, overshadowed by the holy mountain of Fuji, which in itself was more mysterious still, and filled one both with superstitious and religious feelings, and a feeling of awe as well. No one of any imagination can approach the mountain even today without having one or all of these emotions. Yosoji, however, sped on, as fast as he could go, and arrived at the shrine of Okinaga Tsukineo. He found that the stream had dried up. There was not a drop of water left. Yosoji flung himself upon his knees before the shrine and thanked the god of long breath that he had been the means of curing his mother and the surviving villagers. He prayed that his guide to the spring might reveal her presence, and that he might be enabled to meet her once more to thank her for her kindness. When he arose, Yosoji saw his guide standing beside him, and bowed low. She was the first to speak. "You must not come here," she said. "I have told you so before. It is a place of great danger for you. Your mother and the villagers are cured. There is no reason for you to come here more." "I have come," answered Yosoji, "because I have not fully spoken my thanks, and because I wish to tell you how deeply grateful I am to you, as is my mother and as are the whole of our villagers. Moreover, they all, as well as I, wish to know to whom they are indebted for my guidance to the spring. Though Kamo Yamakiko told me of the spring, I should never have found it but for your kindness, which has now extended over 5 weeks. Surely you will let us know to whom we are so much indebted, so that we may at least erect a shrine in our temple." "All that you ask is unnecessary. I am glad that you are grateful. I knew that one so truly filial as you must be so, and it is because of your filial piety and goodness that I guided you to this health-giving spring, which, as you see, is dry, having at present no further use. It is unnecessary that you should know who I am. We must now part, so farewell. End your life as you have begun it, and you shall be happy." The beautiful maiden swung a wild camellia branch over her head as if with a beckoning motion, and a cloud came down from the top of the Mount Fuji, enveloping her at first in mist. It then arose, showing her figure to the weeping Yosoji, who now began to realize that he loved the departing figure, and that it was no less a figure than that of the great goddess of Fujiyama. Yosoji fell on his knees and prayed to her, and the goddess, acknowledging his prayer, threw down the branch of wild camellia. Yosoji carried it home and planted it, caring for it with the utmost attention. The branch grew to a tree with marvelous rapidity, being over 20 feet high in 2 years. A shrine was built, people came to worship the tree, and it is said that the dewdrops from its leaves are a cure for all eye complaints. End of chapter 31. Read by Rob Marland.
Chapter 32 of Ancient Tales and Folklore of Japan. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Vlad Amelchuk. Ancient Tales and Folklore of Japan by Richard Gordon Smith. Whales. There are many stories and superstitions regarding whales. I take one, dating back to the period of Hoenn, 1135, which will show the veneration and the fear in which the Japanese have always held these creatures. I will annex the translation by Mr. Ando of our consulate of a newspaper paragraph of date February 12, 1907, showing that the superstitions are still current. Some 172 years ago, when the Hoenn period began, the shrine of Atsuta at Nagoya was burned down. For some reason, this calamity was said at the time to have happened because the head shrine watcher, Yoda-emon, had startled one of the gods. Well, at any rate, the holy shrine was burned down, and the caretaker was exiled to Oshima Island in Idzu Province, now generally known as Vries Island. It is the largest and most northerly of the group of islands, which run in a chain towards the southeast. The nearest to Oshima is Toshi Island, often named Rishima, of which our story is told. Yoda Emon was a man of active mind and pursuits. Perhaps that is why he startled the god who caused the fire at Atsuta. In any case, he felt his exile greatly. He could gain no news of home or family, and he fretted and worried himself to such an extent that at last his nights became sleepless, and he thought to himself that if some relief to his mind did not come soon, he must either kill himself or go mad. At last, it occurred to him that possibly he might get permission to go fishing, and the permission was given him, on condition that he kept within a mile of the shore. Day after day, Yoda took the boat which was lent him, and returned generally with a goodly supply of fish, singing to himself as he rowed in to and out from the shore. He soon managed to sleep soundly and regain his strength. After a month or two, Yoda became quite a popular person, giving his fish away free to any who chose to take them, and he was soon allowed a wider range than the 1 mile limit. He became an expert sailor, and had it not been for the loss of his family, he would have been quite happy in his new home. One day, the morning being calm, Yoda ventured farther away than usual, hoping to capture some of the larger fish, which were reputed to be plentiful some 10 miles from Toshishima. He was lucky and landed 3 magnificent fish of the mackerel family, known as Sada in Japan, Sia in India, and albacore with us in England, who never see them. Unfortunately, after this, the wind, instead of springing up from the southeast as usual, came out from the northwest, and instead of being able to return to Oshima, Yoda found himself being blown farther from it. The wind came stronger and stronger until a gale was blowing, and soon the currents caused a high and breaking sea. Darkness set in, and Yoda thought to himself that this was a visitation upon him for having caught fish. "Oh," cried he aloud, "what foolish sin have I now committed? Surely my position as a banished priest should have told me that I was sinning in catching fish." He flung himself on the bottom of the boat and prayed. But his prayers availed him nothing, for the wind increased in force and so did the sea. Long after midnight, a big wave smashed the boat to splinters. Half stunned, half drowned, Yoda clung to the large oar, and so remained for some 3 hours. At last, he felt himself being bumped against what he took to be a rock, and letting go the oar, scrambled onto it, more dead than alive. After many efforts, so exhausted was he and so numbed, he sat there only half conscious in the dark. Towards morning, the turn of tide caused the sea to smooth down, and as the sun rose, Yoda found to his horror that it was no rock upon which he sat, but the back of a live whale of gigantic size. Yoda knew neither what to do, nor what to think. He dared not move, for fear of disturbing the whale's repose. Not even when the animal blew water and air from its spout hole did he venture to turn his body. But silently he muttered prayers all the time. At last, when the sun was full up, the whale began to turn round, and as it did, so Yoda saw a large fishing boat, not more than half a mile away. He shouted and shouted at the top of his voice, trying to attract attention, but move he dared not, lest the whale should leave him. The wind was still high, but the sea was smooth. Suddenly, the fishing boat changed its course, and the whale lay still again, basking in the sunshine. The boat advanced rapidly, and when about 80 feet from the whale, brought up to the wind and lay still. A lifeline, with a buoy attached, was drifted towards the whale, and when it was near enough, Yoda slid off to take it, and was hauled into the boat, thoroughly thankful for his rescue. As soon as Yoda was on board, the boat began to roll, for the whale lashed his tail and was playing about, causing quite a heavy sea. But, to the relief of all, the creature headed south for the open Pacific. The crew on the fishing boat belonged to Toshi Island and had heard of Yoda Emon, and, being good-natured fellows, felt sorry for him in his exile. After his astonishing adventure with the whale, they did not in the least mind taking him back to Oshima, which they reached about sundown. Yoda immediately reported himself and was congratulated on his extraordinary escape. After this, Yoda gave up fishing and submitted without grumbling to the severe discipline of his exile. On the occasion of Prince Tanin ascending the throne, an ordinance was issued, giving freedom to many prisoners and exiles. Yoda Emon was among them, and was given permission to return home, but he said he had made so many friends on the island, and his life has been saved so miraculously, that he preferred to live where he was. And he obtained official permission to do so, and to send for his family, which after building a house he did. In the first year of Koji, 1142 to 1144, Yoda was made mayor of Shichito, that is, the 7 islands lying round or south of Oshima, and including itself. Now, thought he, I shall be able to repay the kindness that the whale showed me in saving my life. And he issued an order that no whales were to be chased or killed anywhere near the islands over which he had jurisdiction. At first, there was some grumbling, but the government sent messengers to Oshima to say that the emperor approved Yoda Emon's order, and furthermore, that during Yoda's life, no whale was to be killed anywhere in Shichito. Whale and Whaler. Some years ago, there lived a wealthy fisherman called Matsushima Tomigoro at Matsushima in Nagasaki. He made a large fortune by whale fishing. One night, he dreamed a strange dream. A whale, Zato Kujira, carrying a baby whale, appeared before his pillow and requested him to let her and the baby go safely. They were going to pass a certain part of the sea at a certain time and date. Matsushima heartlessly did not accede, but took advantage of the information. He put a net in the said sea at the due time, and caught a whale and her baby. Not long after, the cruel fisherman began to reap the harvest of his mercilessness. Misfortune after misfortune befell him, and all his wealth disappeared. It must be the result of his cruelty in killing the whale and its baby, said the neighbors. And for some time, they never caught whales carrying babies. Translated by Mr. Ando. End of chapter 32.
Chapter 33 of Ancient Tales and Folklore of Japan. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Linda Marie Nielsen, Vancouver, BC. Ancient Tales and Folklore of Japan by Richard Gordon Smith. The Holy Cherry Tree of Musubi-no-Kami Temple. In the province of Mimikasa is a small town called Kagami, and in the temple grounds is a shrine which has been there for some hundreds of years, and is dedicated to Musubi-no-Kami, the god of love. Near by one stood a magnificent old cherry tree, which was given the name of Kanzakura, or holy cherry, and it is in honor of this tree that the shrine dedicated to the god of love was built. Long ago, when the village of Kagmi was smaller than it is at present, it had as one of its chief residents a man called Sodaru. Sodaru was one of those men, to be found in most Japanese villages, who with but little work thrive on the work of others and grow richer than most. He bought and sold their crops, making commission both ways, and before he was middle aged he was a rich man. Sudaru was a widower, but he had a lovely daughter who was aged 17, and it was thought by Sudaru that the time had now arrived for him to look about for a desirable husband for Hanano. Accordingly, he called her to him and said: "The time has come, my dear child, when it is my duty to find you a suitable husband. When I have done so you will, I trust, approve of him, for it will be your duty to marry him." Of course, O Hanano bowed her willingness to do just as her father decreed, but at the same time she confided in her favorite servant Yuka that she did not care about being married to a man that she might not love. "What can I do? What would you advise me to do, my dear O Yuka? Do try and think how you can help me to obtain a man I can love. A handsome man he must be, and not more than 22 years of age." Oyuka answered that the advice asked for was difficult to give, but there was one thing she said: "You can go to the temple and pray at the shrine of Musubi-no-Kami, the god of love. Pray him that the husband your father finds may be handsome and after your own heart. They say that if you pray at this shrine 21 days in succession, you will obtain the kind of lover you want." O Hamano was pleased with the idea, and that afternoon, accompanied by Yuka, her maid, she went to pray at the shrine of Musubi no Kani. Day after day they continued until the 21st and last day of the series had arrived. They had finished their prayers and were on their way from the temple and passing under the great cherry tree known as the Kanzakura, or holy cherry, when they saw, standing near its stem, a youth of some 20 or 21 years. He was handsome, with a pale face and expressive eyes. In his hand he held a branch of cherry blossom. He smiled pleasantly at Hanano, and she at him. Then bowing, he came forward and smilingly presented her with the blossom. Hanano blushed and took the flowers. The youth bowed again and walked away, as did Hanano, who had a fluttering heart and felt very happy, for she thought that this youth must be the one sent by the god of love in answer to her prayers. "Of course it must be," she said to O Yuka. "This is the 21st, and that completes the course of prayer you spoke of. Am I not lucky? And is he not handsome? I do not think it possible that a more handsome youth was ever seen. I wish he had not gone away so soon." This and much more did O Hanano prattle to her maid on the way home, upon reaching which the first thing she did was to put the cherry blossom branch into a vase in her own room. "O Yuka!" she called for the 20th time at least. "Now you must go and find out all you can about the young man. But say nothing to my father as yet. Possibly it is not the husband he is choosing for me, but I can love no other, at all events, and I must love him in secret if this is the case. Now go, dear Yuka. Find out all you can, and will you prove yourself more faithful and dear to me than ever?" And the faithful maid went on her young mistress's errand. Now Oyuka found out nothing about the youth they had seen under the holy cherry tree, but she found out that there was another youth in the village who had fallen greatly in love with her mistress, and as he had heard that O Hanano's father was looking out for a suitable husband, he intended to apply next day himself. His name was Tokunosuke. He was a fairly well connected youth, and had some means, but his looks were in no way comparable with those of the youth who had handed the cherry branch to Hanano. Having discovered this much, Yuka returned to her young mistress and reported. Next day, early in the morning, at the most formal calling hour, Tokunosuke went by appointment to see Hanano's father. Hanano was called to serve tea, and saw the young man. Tokunosuke was scrupulously formal and polite to her, and she to him, and soon after he left Hanano was told by her father that was the young man whom he had chosen to be her husband. "He is desirable in every way," he added. "He has money, his father is my friend, and he has secretly loved you for some months. You can ask for nothing better." O Hanano made no answer, but burst out crying and left the room, and Yuka was called in her stead. "I have found a most desirable young man as husband for your mistress," said Soryu, "but instead of showing pleasure and gratitude she has flown from the room crying. Can you explain to me the reason? You must know her secrets. Has she a lover unknown to me?" Oyuka was not prepared to face the anger of her mistress's father, and she thought that truth in this especial instance would further Hanano's interests best, so she told the story faithfully and boldly. Soryu thanked her for it, and again called his daughter to him, telling her that she must either produce her lover or allow Tokunosuke to call and press his suit. Next morning Tokunosuke did call, but Hanano told him with tears in her eyes that she could not love him, for she loved another, whose name she did not even know herself. "This is a strange piece of news," thought Tokunosuke to himself. "Almost insulting to love a man whose name she does not know, and, bowing low, he left the house, determined to find out who his nameless rival was, even if he had to disguise himself and follow Hanano to do so. That very afternoon Hanano and Yuka went to pray as usual, and on coming away they again found the handsome youth standing under the cherry tree, and again he advanced and smilingly handed Hanano a branch full of bloom, but again no words came from his lips, and it was evident to Tokunosuke, who was hiding behind some stone lanterns, that they could not have known each other long. In a few moments they bowed and separated. O Hanano and her maid walked away from the temple, while the youth under the cherry tree looked after them. Tokunosuke was now furiously jealous. He came from his hiding place and accosted the youth under the cherry tree in a rude and rough tone. "Who are you, you hateful rascal? Give me your name and address at once, and tell me how you dare tempt the beautiful O Hanano-san to love you." He was about to seize his enemy by the arm, when the enemy jumped suddenly back a step, and before Tokunosuke had time to catch him a sudden gust of wind blew the bloom thickly off the cherry tree. So thick and quickly did the blossoms fall, they blinded Tokunosuke for some moments. When he could see again, the handsome youth was gone, but there was a strange moaning sound inside the cherry tree, while one of the temple priests came rushing at him in great anger, crying, "Ah, you sacrilegious villain! What do you mean by attempting violence here? Do you not know that this cherry tree has stood here for hundreds of years? It is sacred and contains a holy spirit, which sometimes comes forth in the form of a youth. It is he that you tried to touch with your filthy and unholy hand. Begone, I say, and never dare enter this temple again." Tokunosuke did not want pressing. He took to his heels and he ran straight to the house of Sodayaku, and told what he had seen, and what had befallen him, omitting nothing, even to the names of the priest had called him. "Perhaps now your daughter may consent to marry me," he finished by saying. "She cannot marry a holy spirit." O Hanano was called, and told the story, and was very much upset that the face to whom she had given her heart was that of a spirit. "What sin have I committed?" she cried, "falling in love with a god?" And she rushed off to implore forgiveness at the shrine. Long and earnestly she prayed that her sin might be forgiven her. She resolved to devote the rest of her life to the temple, and as she refused to marry she obtained her father's consent. Then she applied for permission to live in the temple and become one of its caretakers. She shaved her head, wore a white linen coat, and the crimson pantaloons which denote that you are no longer of the world. O Hanano remained in the temple for the rest of her life. sweeping the grounds and praying. The temple still stands. It is highly probable that if the stump of the cherry tree remains, another tree is planted beside it, as is usual. End of chapter 33. Recording by Linda Marie Nielsen, Vancouver, BC.
Hello. So there we go. That's some interesting stories for sure. So how's everybody doing today? As you can see, I'm really focused on. Hi, honey. You listening? Are you having a good lunch? Faye, are you having a good lunch? You're gonna have lunch, I think. It's about our project. Okay, awesome. Awesome. I'm glad for sure. So thanks for coming by, guys. You got a little bit of a sneak peek with me prepping for some future videos. I have been really focused on this the last few days. They're potentially all fairly quick videos, and I can probably get a bunch of them done so that there's something going on during the winter, and birds are starting to do their needs a girl hops. Are they? Too funny. Awesome. So thanks for joining me again, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and yeah, we'll talk to you later. And if you would like to suggest a book to me, anything from LibriVox.org. Of course, English, because, well, most of my listeners are English. But any fairy tales, I'm not too fussy on what ones, as long as we haven't done them before, and they aren't explicit, you know. But then folk fairy tales are sometimes pretty awful. So, love you guys, and hope you have an absolutely wonderful day. Bye!